All right, welcome to it, everybody. Altitude Sports Radio's in the paint, reacting to Nuggets and Hornets down at Ball Arena. We will do a live watch along here. Just over 3 minutes to go in this one. The Nuggets are getting run out of the gym in their own gym against the Charlotte Hornets. 104-78 is the score down at Ball Arena right now. This felt like a game where all of the injuries and starters out finally caught up to the Denver Nuggets. Now, look, Charlotte's at full strength right now, and both teams are coming off of a game last night. So they're both playing in the second game of a back-to-back. In fact, Charlotte lost to Golden State in Golden State last night and then had to fly to Denver. So really, if you look at it that way, the Nuggets had at least the rest advantage there because the Nuggets obviously played at home last night, but no Aaron Gordon tonight. Not sure if he tweaked the hamstring or if this is just injury management. I hope it's injury management, obviously, for Aaron Gordon. I have not seen any news on that. So obviously that'll be something where we'll all want to keep an eye out to see what that was. And, obviously the Nuggets will play the Lakers on Tuesday. So we'll see if Aaron Gordon is good to go for that game or not. But you could tell the Nuggets they were outmatched in this game from the jump. The bigs for the Charlotte Hornets were just too much to handle for this depleted Nuggets team. The size difference was quite clear towards the beginning of this game. I mean, the Charlotte Hornets were able to just in fact, there's just another easy dunk for Kalkbrenner there for the Charlotte Hornets. The offensive rebounds were 7-2 about midway through the first quarter, and the Nuggets were getting out rebounded all game long. They could not stop the Hornets from staying off the offensive glass, and it was just so apparent that they were at a height disadvantage in this game, especially with no Aaron Gordon. And even with Aaron Gordon in there tonight, I don't know if he would have made too much of a difference, at least for the height advantage that Charlotte had. But we saw what Aaron Gordon was able to do last night against the Washington Wizards. When he came back in the fourth quarter, he actually really did help on the glass for the Nuggets. So he would have helped, but I don't know if even if Aaron Gordon would have helped the Nuggets overcome the massive deficiencies they had rebounding the basketball against the Charlotte Hornets tonight. Again, I think it would have helped, certainly. But with the way the Nuggets are getting worked in this game, it just was, it was, I mean, it was like right from the jump. This team was lacking energy. There was never any flow for the offense in this game. It might be their lowest scoring game of the season. There's 1:20 to go, and the Nuggets have 82 points right now. In fact, they scored 18 points in the first and 16 points in the second quarter. They had 34 points at halftime. They're averaging over 60 points in the first half this season. So they were well below 16, 17, 18 points below what they average in the first half of games. They'll now move to 7-4 in the 11 games that Nikola Jokic has missed. Again, like I said, still got to be proud of how this team has played while Nikola Jokic and so many other starters have been out. Tonight, like I said, it just felt like a game that was inevitable, especially when I heard Aaron Gordon wasn't going tonight. Jamal Murray was the only starter out there. These are the kind of games I was expecting in Philly and Boston and a plethora of other games that they've played without so many of their best players. And tonight just felt kind of like a culmination of that happening. And there's another easy dunk there for the Hornets at the rim. It's just the Nuggets had no answer for the Hornets' height tonight. They started the game 6 of 8 from 3. Did Charlotte? They were leaving way too many guys open in the corner. Charlotte, look, I know Charlotte has been one of the worst teams in the NBA for what feels like 2 decades now. But I said this about Washington last night. And I kind of feel the same way about the Charlotte Hornets, who are at full strength, by the way. The only guy they're missing that plays regularly for them is former Nugget Mason Plumlee. And when you get top 5 picks, top 8 picks in the NBA draft year after year after year after year, which is what we've seen with the Washington Wizards and the Charlotte Hornets. Eventually, you're going to get some really good players and turn things around at some point. Now, Charlotte, it's taken forever to happen, but they've built a really good team. Con Kneppel, I believe, was the 4th overall pick in last year's NBA draft. He is playing tremendously. He's having a great rookie season. He's averaging over 19 points a game, which leads all NBA rookies, even over Cooper Flagg, the number 1 overall pick, who's having a hell of a rookie season himself. So great outside shooter, lengthy guy, and he looks like he's already a seasoned NBA vet with the way he has been playing this season and how he played tonight. Brandon Miller was the 2nd overall pick just a couple of years ago. LaMelo Ball was, I believe, the 3rd overall pick in 2021. So look, they've got some talent on this team. This is not your Charlotte Hornets of 4 or 5 years ago. This team is playing much, much better. They're, like I said, they're basically at full strength health-wise, and it just went final there. And the Nuggets fall to the Hornets 110-87 is your final. Credit to the Nuggets, though, for fighting till the end. I mean, they did outscore Charlotte 30-23 in that 4th quarter. Now, I get it. This game was all but over about, I don't know, 4 minutes into the 3rd quarter. This thing was over. Okay. You could say it was over at halftime. But you always like to see your teams fight in games where it's over early on and continue to put up a fight down the stretch. I thought Deron Holmes tonight was really up and down, made some really just silly decisions on some screens. Same with Zeke Naji, made a couple of silly decisions, screening way too hard, getting called for the foul. Deron Holmes got into foul trouble early. He hit a couple threes. Okay, that's great. But here's what I didn't like from Deron Holmes tonight. Well, a couple of things. The first one is there was too many silly fouls on him, but he took 7 shots tonight. Deron Holmes, all 7 were 3-point attempts. I don't like that. Like, I'm okay with Deron Holmes stepping outside and shooting a 3-ball because he's shown the ability to knock those down. I believe he's shooting well over 40% in the G League this year, and he's shown an ability to knock down 3-point shots in the NBA with the Denver Nuggets. But he's got to learn how to get inside and finish around the rim at some point. You know, that's going to be the next step, hopefully, in Deron Holmes' development, is learning how to get better from the mid-range, and specifically for a guy of his size and his strength to get inside and get some points around the rim. I mean, that's what we're seeing Peyton Watson has learned to do much, much better this year, is finishing around the rim. And I think that's going to be sort of the next step of development for Deron Holmes, because it's just, you take 7 shots and all 7 are from 3-point range. You just can't have that from, at least right now, one of your bigs. I know technically when this team's at full health, first of all, he's not going to be playing, but even if he was, you know, he's got to be a guy that can get inside and get to the basket. So that's going to be the next step. I'm staying patient with him. I mean, I like his ability to go outside and shoot a 3-ball, but you know, there are several areas that Deron Holmes needs to improve his offensive game. And look, he's got time, and I'm willing to be patient with him. I hope that the Nuggets and their coaching staff and front office are willing to be patient with him as well. I think they will be, by the way, with how patient they've been with guys like Peyton Watson and Jalen Pickett and even Zeke Naji. Hunter Tyson played 21 minutes tonight. He scored a point and shot 0 of 9 from the field and 0 of 8 from 3. That was Hunter Tyson's stat line tonight. 1 point from the free throw line. He was 1 of 2 from the line. 0 of 8 from 3, 0 of 9 from the field. So again, a guy like Hunter Tyson, 8 of his 9 shot attempts were from 3. And I know he's out there to shoot three balls, okay? I get it. But at some point, you've got to keep the defense honest and show that you can either hit from the mid-range or get to the basket. Shoot, at worst, try to draw a foul driving to the rim. So that was another area where it's just like, oh my goodness. Like the Nuggets took 79 field goals. They took 38 threes and hit 8. They were 21%. So of their 79 field goal attempts tonight, 38 of them were 3. Half of them were threes. Now, Charlotte took 89 field goals and 34 of theirs were 3, well below 50%. I mean, that's not shocking that the Hornets didn't take as many 3-point attempts as the Denver Nuggets did, because I get why the Nuggets shot a little bit more from the 3-point line than they normally would, because they're, like I mentioned, their disadvantage in this game was so apparent and obvious from the get-go that they just had to find out ways to, or try to figure out ways to score on the offensive end. But the problem with that strategy is if you're cold from 3, you're in for a long night. And that's exactly what we saw with the Nuggets here tonight. So the rebounding too was just absurd. I mean, the Charlotte Hornets out-rebounded the Nuggets 52-29. Again, not surprising because Charlotte had all of their bigs in there, except for Mason Plumlee, but Kalkbrenner was just dominating the smaller players in the painted area. Like there was a point in the I think it might have been early in the fourth quarter where they switch and Jalen Pickett gets matched up on Kalkbrenner. He had no chance. And they feed Kalkbrenner the ball inside the post. Jalen Pickett falls down, easy dunk. And that's just kind of what this game was all night. And again, like the Hornets didn't shoot great, especially from 3. They shot 32%, like pretty good number if you're the opposition. But the Nuggets shot 21%. Free throws were fairly even. The Hornets were 11 for 13. Nuggets were 15 of 18. But the rebounds, the offensive rebounds, the Hornets had 16 offensive rebounds. The Nuggets had 8. The assists, Charlotte had 30 assists. The Nuggets had 21. So this was just a complete domination of the Denver Nuggets this evening at Ball Arena. And, like I said earlier, this felt like this was inevitable with how many injuries the Nuggets have suffered. And to be honest with you, like I've talked about this, I have been shocked at how many wins this team has been able to pile up with all of the injuries that they've been going through, specifically to Nikola Jokic. But you got 4 starters out tonight. This was a kind of game that I was expecting in Philadelphia. The miracle win that the Nuggets had a couple of weeks ago, like this was the kind of result I was expecting in that game. The Hornets were favorites going into this game tonight. So just so everyone's aware, like I think they were 4.5-point favorites. If I could be wrong, but I believe they were 4.5-point favorites going into tonight's game, which isn't surprising whatsoever. But yeah, it is what it is. Like they're still 7-4 without Nikola Jokic. I said last night, if they can just go 500 until Joker and some of the other starters can get back at this point, man, you got to take that as a win. I said at the beginning of this stretch without Nikola Jokic, if they can go 500 until he returns, I would take that. Well, right now they're 7-4, so even better. I mean, I thought that was going to be best case scenario for this team. Now, look, it might even out to 500 basketball by the time Nikola Jokic returns. I mean, I don't know. But boy, it would be fantastic to get Aaron Gordon back sooner rather than later. Like I said, I hope that this isn't a re-injure or re-aggravation of the hamstring injury. I haven't heard yet, so I don't know. And I'm just trying to wait and see if we can get that information as soon as possible, because that it would be, just an absolute killer if he re-aggravated his hamstring, because that was something I was concerned about, rushing him back too soon, because hamstrings are a really tricky thing. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, we'll wait and see what David Adelman has to say about the game tonight. There was a weird moment earlier on in this game. I believe it was the excuse me, start of the second quarter. And let's see, I put it in my notes here. Yeah, so it was the very beginning of the second quarter. It was kind of a weird thing that happened. Adelman had to call a timeout 5 seconds into the second quarter, and it looked like, and it was confirmed later by the broadcast crew, like he was trying to sub in Deron Holmes. Now, I'm not sure exactly why that happened. I believe that Charlotte made a sub that Adelman wanted to counter with Deron Holmes. And Adelman was upset with the refs because they didn't give the Nuggets time to sub him in. So the Nuggets inbound the basketball, and Adelman is just out on the court yelling at the official. and he's like, has to call a timeout. And he's literally screaming, timeout, timeout. And then he's screaming at the ref. They actually didn't tee him up, which was good. So that was just a really odd moment in the game. Like, how do you have that happen out of a commercial TV timeout going into the second quarter? Very odd moment there in the second quarter. But yeah, I mean, like, the first quarter, like I said, the Hornets start 6 of 8 from 3. They started this game leading 20-9. And it was at that point where you could just tell that this was not the Nuggets' night tonight. They were switching everything on the defensive end to start the game, and it wasn't working. Guys were wide open in the corners, so that strategy was not working too well. We had a moment in the first quarter where Peyton Watson actually got fouled hard by Brandon Miller and went to the ground and was holding his knee, but luckily it looked like he was fine. It just looked like he tweaked his knee a little bit. He was holding it, but got up, got to the free throw line, knocked him down, and didn't really look any worse for wear. But I got to tell you, I was screaming some curse words at the television when he went down and was holding his knee. I was just like, you have got to be kidding me with this team and the injuries. So luckily he was okay and was able to stay in the game. And I thought Peyton was fine tonight. Like, this was just a game where there were two Nuggets that I thought played pretty well for the most part. One of them was Jamal Murray. He had 16 points, but just on 12 shots. He was 7 of 12 from the field. He only took 2 3-point attempts, missed both of them, but he was just okay, and he only had 2 assists. So this wasn't a high scoring game or a high distribution game, facilitation game for Jamal Murray. It wasn't a high scoring game for anybody on the Nuggets tonight. In fact, Jamal was the team's leading scorer with 16 points. Okay, I'll take that back. I said 2 Nuggets I thought I liked tonight. 3 I actually did like. I thought Peyton Watson, I know he was only 4 of 12 from the field, but I thought he played his ass off and tried his best to keep the Nuggets in the game. I mean, I never saw Peyton Watson take a play or series off whatsoever. So that was good to see. And then, you know what? A guy I've been critical of and begging for more from is Julian Strawther. And I know a lot of his buckets came in the fourth quarter, kind of in garbage time minutes, but I look at that as a positive for Julian Strawther, just in the sense that can this be a performance that maybe lights a spark under him and gives him some momentum that can carry him forward, at least until the starters come back and they start getting healthier. Because I've said this before, but Julian Strawther is a guy that I identified at the beginning of this injury stretch that I said has a really good opportunity to step up and start playing a bigger role on this team. He's an excellent outside shooter. He's a guy that we've seen flashes when he gets hot. He's a lethal outside shooter. And tonight he was 5 of 7 from the field and 2 of 3 from beyond the arc, and he had all 3 of his free throws and finished with 15 points. So efficient 15 points. That was good to see. That was kind of a positive from the game tonight, and we'll see, hopefully, that maybe that will light a spark under Julian Strother and sort of get him going. All right, David Adelman is speaking to the media, so let's go ahead and hear what the head coach has to say after the Nuggets got probably the biggest ass kicking they have had all season long. Here is David Adelman, the Nuggets head coach.
I don't know. I thought we played okay. They played great. We had a really poor shooting night. And then it hit a point where I just felt like it wasn't worth playing the guys in minutes. They still got, Peyton was at 28. Jamal 25, Tim, it just was enough at 13. So, yeah, once they took that lead and they shot it like they did the same thing in LA. They won by 55 4 games ago. So it's a talented team. I thought they were more impressive defensively tonight than offensively. Early, they really shot the ball well, but they really, we just couldn't find an advantage anywhere. Couldn't create anything, 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s. So you give them a lot of credit. They were really good tonight. So it's a talented roster, and they're fully healthy. They made a lot of plays tonight, and we did not.
So it's a real challenge for Duran on the boards right now. What do you see in there, and what do you want to see from him to make improvements?
Yeah, I don't think it's Duran. I don't think it's anyone in particular. It's just what we talked about. We have to have a second person get in there and help. Right now we're undermanned physically a little bit on the boards, and I just think it's one of those things where you have to sit down and guard your own guy, because if you don't, and I made this point, and our big has to rotate to help. Now you have another really small person trying to crack back on Colbrenner or Diabate, whoever those people are. And once you do that, there's a guard that's crashing behind that. And it's really hard to take all those people out at the same time. So the last 2 nights has been just hell on the defensive board. So just as a team, just got to keep talking about it. We'll watch it. And obviously, like last night, at the end of the game, we talked about this. The numbers were terrible, but Aaron was incredible at the end of the game. But Aaron's not going to play every game. And so there's no excuses there. As a team, we have to do a better job at the point of guarding the ball, which will help us actually get a body on somebody and be able to compete, on the defensive rebound. So it's just got to get better. It's a glaring weakness right now. I love the effort in the second half. I know we couldn't make a shot, but I thought the guys played super hard.
Does it affect your decision whether to play man or zone, the rebounding? Man, it's easier to block out. Zone
is it?
Well, they say.
No, I think you're right. You're right. I think so far it hasn't really mattered. But to my earlier point, if you play man, then you have to guard your man. And if they get behind you, you get beat going to the rim, or they roll behind us and catch it, it's not man anymore. It's just a scrambling zone. So when you get in those situations, it just makes it much harder to physically compete on the glass. Like I know I'm going to watch this film like I did yesterday's game, and there'll be times we played great defense and flew around and contested a shot, and they come up with a rebound and another rebound, and all of a sudden you feel like they have the ball the whole game. So it's got to be better, and we will be better.
Start of the second quarter, was that just about being able to answer their subs when they go?
No, that's something that they got to think about in the league. That should be a delay of game on both of us. I'm trying to match somebody up with somebody else. They literally were hockey subbing back and forth. So I did. And then they decided to put the ball in bounds when I was still hockey subbing. So they just got to figure that out. Like, that's something they talked about
Interesting.
last year. And a lot of people are using it for challenges reasons, where you were acting like you're subbing to get more time for your coaches to look at the replay. That's not what this was. And Charles and I, we're not trying to screw with the game. It was just, I was trying to get a matchup. He was trying to get a matchup. So at some point, they have to tell us both, you're getting a delay, or they got to tell us to put 5 people on the court. So I was ultra confused, and I had to burn a timeout to get my point across, which is not good in a game where you're trailing. So it was unfortunate. It happens. It's just a random thing that happened in a game.
Well, luckily, it had no impact.
Okay, so yeah, well, I'm glad that they asked Adelman about that, because that was what I was just talking about. There was a really weird moment to start that second quarter, and I was still really kind of confused even after the game was over. Not really, but I still had some questions on like what exactly happened in that incident, because I had never seen that happen in an NBA game before. So there you go. Adelman basically was saying that the Hornets were trying to hockey sub players in and out, and so he was like, okay, well, if they're going to do that, then I'm going to send in my guys and get the matchups that I want. So interesting. I'm surprised that we haven't seen that happen more just around the league. And Adelman said, that's something that the league is just going to have to figure out and just get rid of the game, or get out of the game. So that look to see if that's something that the NBA addresses. I would not be surprised if they were to address that. Because like this isn't hockey. You can't just sub guys in and out whenever you want. There's a process that must be followed. And clearly Adelman didn't think that the Hornets were following that process. And he said, well, they're not giving them a delay of game or penalizing them in any way, so we're going to do the same thing. And he wouldn't let us do it. So I like the timeout, by the way, by Adelman. I mean, I know he said it sucks that they had to burn a timeout, especially when you're down. Obviously, it didn't matter in the end, but there would be certain games where maybe it would matter. So yeah, that was just a quirky moment to start the second quarter. And, I just was very confused. And I think a lot of Nuggets fans and probably Hornets fans were confused as well. And to see a head coach call a timeout 5 seconds into a quarter is something I've never seen before. Now, I will say, I think I've told this story before, but this was like 5 or 6 years ago. And I was covering a Nuggets Spurs game at Ball Arena, and Greg Popovich called a timeout. I believe it was like 8 or 9 seconds into the game. The Nuggets won the tip, go down, score right away. Popovich hated what he saw, I guess, defensively from his team, and called a timeout like 8 seconds into the game. That was the quickest timeout I'd ever seen to start a game or to start a quarter even, and until tonight. But obviously there was nothing that the Nuggets did wrong that Adelman was pissed off about. He just didn't like how the refs were allowing Charlotte to continue to send guys in and out, and wanted to try to do the same thing. So that was just a weird moment. I'm glad we sort of got an explanation there. One more thing that Adelman said that was somewhat encouraging. He did say, he mentioned how Aaron Gordon helped on the glass in the fourth quarter. Like I had mentioned earlier, he was spectacular at the end of last night's game against the Washington Wizards. And I've been concerned kind of all day once Aaron Gordon was ruled out. It didn't say, because here's why I was confused, okay? Because typically when the Nuggets send out their injury report, like for games that AG has been missing since his return from his hamstring injury, it will say right hamstring injury management. Well, tonight's report didn't say that. It just said right hamstring injury. So I was like, oh, well, did he get re-injured? So I was trying to figure out why it said that. In fact, I'm trying to find the the Nuggets injury report just real quick, because I want to here it is. I got it right here, because I want to make sure I get this right. Yeah. So earlier today, before the game, the Nuggets tweeted out their injury report, and it says Aaron Gordon, right hamstring strain. Right hamstring strain for Aaron Gordon. In the past, when he hasn't re-injured it or tweaked it, they've said right hamstring strain or injury management, meaning he's fine. He didn't re-injure it. He's just sitting out to make sure he doesn't re-injure it. So that's why I was a little more concerned than I typically would be that he didn't play tonight. But my point is, Adelman, if you were listening closely there, said, Aaron Gordon's not going to play every game. Now, to me, that made it seem like this was a planned, scheduled night off to, quote unquote, manage Aaron Gordon's hamstring injury. So I don't know. I mean, That's just how I took it. I don't know if that's what Adelman was saying, but that's how it sounded to me. So I viewed that as a positive, and obviously we'll find out for sure coming up on Tuesday. If Aaron Gordon's not in the lineup, then I definitely get more concerned. And if he is in the lineup, then okay. No big deal. So those were just a couple of things that were concerning to me before the game. All right, everybody. Let's get to some of your comments here before we get out of here. Let's see here. I'm just trying to go through all this stuff. Wow, you guys are active tonight. I appreciate it. It is fascinating to see people's reactions after a loss. Sometimes they're like way more than a blowout win. I mean, I get it. Fans are kind of pissed off, and that's totally warranted. But tonight, let me ask you this. To everyone listening, are you pissed off about tonight's loss? Because trust me, there are plenty of Nuggets losses where I'm pissed off after the game. Tonight, I just, the Nuggets had no chance in this game. As much as I hate to say that. I can't believe what they've been doing over the last 11 games without Nikola Jokic. I really can't. I have been expecting games like this to happen on a somewhat regular basis over the last 11 games. And they have been fantastic, all things considered. So tonight it was just like, I felt that a game like this was inevitable with the circumstances this team is in. And quite honestly, I'm not surprised at all. I am surprised at how well they have been playing. All right, Kevin says the Nuggets look tired tonight. They absolutely did. I know a lot of Nuggets fans will say, well, Charlotte played on last night too, and they were playing on the second night of a back-to-back, and they had to fly to Denver. All fair points, okay? They didn't get to their hotel room, Katie said on the broadcast, till 3 a.m. Okay, I get it. Fair point. But I was thinking about this during the game. A lot of these guys that are playing big minutes right now, their bodies are not used to playing big-time minutes. Like Zeke Naji, Hunter Tyson, Jalen Pickett, even Peyton Watson. I mean, all these guys. Spencer Jones. Tim Hardaway, but, Tim played 13 minutes tonight. These guys are not used to playing as much as they are, and I do think that was a factor in tonight's game. That's what it looked like to me. So take that for what you will. Let's see here. Marion says that was not very inspiring. No. It was not. But this run overall has been inspiring, at least to me. Do you feel good or bad about the Nuggets being 7-4 over the last 11 games without Nikola Jokic? I think it's quite honestly kind of a miracle that, and again, it's not just Joker. It's 4 starters were out tonight. And by the way, credit to Jamal Murray. I mean, he's been the steady rock this year for the Denver Nuggets. For a guy that has had injury problems over the course of his career and has had problems starting seasons off strong, had problems with consistency from games to games, weeks to weeks, months to months. He has been the rock this year for the Denver Nuggets. He really has been. And that is why Jamal Murray absolutely deserves to be an all-star. 100%. I mean, it was just it's been a masterful performance from Jamal Murray this season. So Marion says not pissed off. Yeah. I mean, I get it. Kevin says that too. I mean, look, if you want to be pissed off, that's totally fine. But I'm feeling pretty good about where the Nuggets are at right now. Feeling pretty damn good with where the Denver Nuggets are at right now with the circumstances that this team is in. So with the loss tonight, they are a half game back of the Spurs. The Spurs were idle. They're 29-13. The Nuggets fall to 29-14 on the season, and they will be playing the 6th seed, 24-16 LA Lakers coming up on Tuesday night. So a lot of games here in the month of January, everyone. 17 games this month. It's the most games they have in any month of the season. We're officially in what I call the dog days of the NBA season. Just like there's the dog days in Major League Baseball, same thing in the NHL. You know, typically they'll say like games 40 through 60 are sort of the dog days of the NHL season. I would say it's probably pretty similar to the NBA. I would say the dog days started, I don't know, beginning of January, roughly, and don't end until the last game before the All-Star break. And then once the teams come back from the All-Star break, the dog days of the NBA season are over, and it's go time. And that's what it's going to be like for the Nuggets this year, too. They have 26 games after the All-Star break, and I'm just knocking on wood here. Hopefully, by then, this team can have some of their star players back because, my God, they will desperately need them. And you know, glass half full, boy, some of their star players have had a lot of time to rest and recuperate and possibly be a lot more fresh than some of these other teams around the NBA to gear up for a playoff run. So if you want to look at it that way, maybe it could be a positive for the Denver Nuggets. All right, that's going to do it for the post-game show tonight, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Biggest loss of the season for the Nuggets. Again, I said I felt there was a loss like this coming at some point, and tonight was the night. Hopefully they can bounce back against the Lakers coming up on Tuesday. That'll be the final game of their 3-game homestand, and then they're back out on the road for games in Washington, Milwaukee, and Memphis. So we'll see what the Nuggets can do against the LeBron James, Luka Doncic-led LA Lakers on Tuesday night. That's going to do it for In the Paint. We'll be back to react to Nuggets and Lakers Tuesday. We'll see you then. Peace.